Thank you all. Thank you, Craig, for setting the stage for this talk. We're really going to be talking about how we built Sidekick in this past couple of years. But before we start, I'm going to show a video from 2023, June 2023.
So I've got something really cool to show you. I'm deeply excited about this. I started this company almost 2 decades ago because entrepreneurship is hard, entrepreneurship is important, and it needs to be easier. There's a million things you need to know when you're embarking on this journey, and a million things that you will have to figure out along the way that you don't even know yet. Some people are lucky enough that you have someone you can call or you can text with questions. Some people do not. But imagine how much more entrepreneurship would there be in the world if everyone would have someone by their side who is deeply competent, totally committed to you, available around the clock, with no judgment, with no fear, knowing everything there is about Shopify and entrepreneurship writ large. Technology has advanced so much in the last year that this is now possible. And we are building this directly into Shopify. We could not be more excited about it. We believe entrepreneurs are heroes. This is our foundational belief here. And every hero needs a sidekick. Every entrepreneur has tons of questions. Sidekick will have answers that are specific to your business. It is built for the purpose of helping you with the entrepreneurial journey. One of the best things about Sidekick is that it can take things off your to-do lists, and if you so choose, do them for you. It will not question your vision, but if there's a big change you want to make, it'll definitely be able to help you with that too. Sidekick knows everything that Shopify knows. That includes how to design your store, that includes developer documentation and economic trends. I can't actually think of any corner of the internet that will benefit more from AI than the pursuit of people building their own businesses. I've been part of the technology industry since the mid-90s. I have never seen anything like AI. This will be an unbelievable boon to entrepreneurship.
So we had our goal to go far beyond a chatbot, and we were really trying to achieve that goal. Sidekick was a really small team back then. We had about 4 or 5 people working on it, and we need to make the admin operable. So we're like, okay, how did we get to do this? And you all seen the Shopify admin from Craig. We were looking at 700 routes, 4 form libraries, God knows how many types of loading data scattered across it, and it was runtime based. So like Craig said, to see what was on a page, the user had to navigate to the page, and we kind of had to try to figure out then what is. And one of the first learnings that we had was how hard it is to know when a page is finally done navigating. Even with all the APIs and all sort of things, there could have been a use query hidden somewhere there that's kind of loading some very important data. So we had to kind of deal with that. So when you get to Sidekick and you ask hey, where can I create a product? Or what are the fields to create a product? We had to figure out how to solve for that. The first Shopify admin now, we got in a much better place. We have all those route first actions. We have all the definitions of loaders and actions. We have schemas that are attached to each route. And that really allow us to unlock the power of Sidekick. That is not to say that we didn't hack our way around it before we had all that. This was 2023. This seemed this new version of the admin with manifest and all was around mid-2024, if I'm not mistaken. But that was what we had to do. And then enter Sidekick. Sidekick, at its heart, is an agent. How many of you here are familiar with this concept of an AI agent, the agentic loop? Amazing. Cuts my job short. But at its heart is we have a human interacting with an LLM. This LLM is performing actions on an environment, and this environment can be an API, this environment can be like a web application. As we're seeing now with all this like MCPY, ChatGPT apps, we're getting more and more like these APIs integrating web applications. From that video, saw like Sidekick was born with a couple of skills that we really wanted to work well. It needed to segment the customer user base. It needed to perform analytics. It needed to navigate the admin. It needed to answer questions. And needed to do form filling. And thus became our little kind of like what I call our quest for context, where we spend the next, I don't know, I'm going to say year trying to figure out like what's the best way to provide good context for a LLM so that it can know what it's doing. Because once you start working with LLMs, you learn that there's a problem of like not enough context, but there's almost a bigger problem of like too much context. You can't like just like put everything there. Maybe one day they'll get there, but that day is definitely not today. So we started working about like how to navigate the admin, like how we get like all those manifests, eligibility rules, descriptions, tasks, and filters. But then we had to go one step further, which was how can we, what's the kind of like additional information that we have to add to that manifest to work properly. It's not only like a description, it's not only like a task, but it can be a natural language way to describe what's being done on the page. We try a couple of things doing that. We tried puppeteering, loading the admin, asking an LLM to kind of like, hey, what can we do here? We try inspecting the markup of the page. We try to track every single form submission that was ever done in the admin, shove that somewhere and analyze it. But what we learn at the end, like, while all those are valid tools, it's really getting like the developers that are building those apps, building those tools, to add that metadata, to enrich and to talk about what they're building. The way the Sidekick works for navigating the admin is you get a user query. This user query triggers an LLM call. This LLM call does like a get admin activities to call, which triggers a quick vector search. We are always trying to get Sidekick to be as fast as possible, so we can't really go like to another LLM here or something like that. And we let the model pick the best route. It works well. That's the thing, 60% of the time works every time, kind of thing. Because one thing that we learned is that the models are trained on a gazillion URLs. So it can get very easy for a model to kind of like ignore running data, and we keep like pulling some levers. Thankfully, they are getting smarter. This is becoming less of a problem for us right now. But then there's the other human problem on this. As people started adding metadata to their admin routes, we got so many, like everybody's building a dashboard in a way or another. So they added like a dashboard route. Some team put like view sales data as the thing that they could do because they could view sales data for their app. And then we have to figure out a way to filter that and to ensure that like all this data is valid. So we build like an evaluation set that should, especially for the most important routes, we knew that they were always going to these places that we expect. And we keep running this thing daily to prevent like degradation in the system. Okay, so now we got like Sidekick. So this is what allows us to do things like take me to my products list. It's gonna take. So we found like 4 pages that could be products. It picked the best one, and then there's this little card which navigates the user. So this is like how Sidekick at the heart it works. We keep tinkering with the UI here. Sometimes I always joke like I don't even know like what kind of like tool calling patterns it's going to be using right now, because that's something that's been changing a lot, especially with MCPY, all these other patterns. And you can also do things like show me my corgi cargo pants. I have a corgi. He is a very big part of my personality, sadly. So it shows up here every there. So this is doing like it found the product. It's gonna try to navigate it. This time they ask me like what's the specific one before showing a link. But then we got like, okay, let's fill some forms. Like, yay, we know what we have to do now. We want to like set a title to the product. Our go-to query was create a red light truck, which type in this, create a product called red tie. I've lost track of how many times I typed this into Sidekick. But you see here, what the model is doing is finding where can it create a toy truck, and then it's generating all this content here for the user. It's like making up prices, trying to get and do the form filling. And you see this is kind of like how it works currently. But when we started this path, this wasn't what was possible. We tried to okay, let's solve this on the DOM level, because surely the DOM is good enough for us to figure out all the metadata that we need. Shopify invested so much in Polaris on those days. For those of you that don't know, Polaris is the React component library, and we were like, okay, we can definitely do this. But as you see, there's not enough metadata on the DOM. I do believe one day browsers are going to build better APIs, or it's going to go into the HTML specs, some AI metadata attributes that you can put on an app, but we're still not there yet. Because even for a case like this, hey, when I add a product to a discount, while on the application level, this is a single field, it's an array of products. On the DOM level, this was a button, an input. If you click there, it pops up a dialog. So what we learned from our experience here is that the framework layer is the best layer for you to kind of operate and let AIs operate and do stuff. There's this old saying never run your own auth. People should add one that's never build your own form library, because I do not recommend that to my worst enemy. But we ended up needed schemas. We needed to balance a good fine line of developer experience and LLM experience. So we brought in Zod, and we started really working towards this sort of schema-first APIs. You saw Craig doing a little glimpse of that, but at its heart, it's hey, I want to have something that we can know ahead of time. We can know without loading the page what can be done. So we created this little create form helper and did this schema, z-string max. And the reason we ended up going this, and this gets used by the use route form, that basically does all the stitching with a loader. It uses the React router handle to find the form that needs for the page, builds everything together in this nice little API that people can just put on their components. But then we were okay, but how can we make AI work really, really well with this? Because that's just a field called title. You're all developers here. You know how you name your fields. Sometimes they don't make a lot of sense. So we started building additional annotations for Sidekick. So you can add to a field a little Sidekick part, and you can say hey, be creative with this field. If it's a price, you can say hey, research the price before picking it up, so that it doesn't try to come up random prices from anywhere. You can really build a lot of instructions for the model, because at the end of the day, and this gets generated into this little JSON schema that then the model understands. One thing that I'll tell you all, models are really, really good at JSON schemas. They have a lot of training, a lot of exposure to them. So it's really a natural way. Even if you're eventually gonna format it in a different format, format it to different things, I strongly recommend thinking in this schema-first approach as you're building AI-enabled apps. But then web continued to evolve. We had MCP that came up earlier this year. We have all those other things. And up to this point, Sidekick was mostly doing server-side stuff. But we really had a change of mind. We were okay, actually, the Shopify admin is an MCP server for Sidekick. It's something that's providing the tools. It's getting the Sidekick can call get form schema for that user. Sidekick can call the fill form. Sidekick can maybe navigate the user, and the admin can even expose additional tools. The sky's the limit, kind of an approach here. And I find this insight kind of funny with the OpenAI apps, because it kind of puts us in a place where, yeah, Sidekick's amazing, but maybe there are other MCP clients that are going to be using all those tools that we're building. And it paints a really nice open standard of future that people can use the Shopify admin as well, however they want. So how does those clients works? It is ugly. It is like a lot of like, Sidekick works on SSE stream. So we got a tool call, we emit an SSE event, the browser executes that event and turns that into like a little to response. So when you go to Sidekick and say, create a new product, what we're doing behind the scenes is calling this get from schema. We're running the loader, we're getting all the schema values. We send it back to the model. The model can think what's going to do, and then it does a final tool call, which was that nice little card that we saw here, like render, like preview, and sort of stuff. And this code here, like a quick demo for you. Like I said, for me, the biggest unlock that we got with like moving to React Router, moving to loaders and actions, is that now all of this happens without the browser having to navigate. All of this happens kind of like in this headless way. So we basically created like a function that you can call form fetch. It finds the loader. It sees the loader has a form. It then calls the loader, executes all the data. There's like translation things here that I want to like just skim through, but like for a model, it's very important for the models, everything could be in English, but we also have part of our form API translatable labels. And then it gets all those forms and return like the schemas to Sidekick. This little flow like unlocked so much for us in like what Sidekick could do. So now Sidekick can start like reasoning about like, hey, I want to do this fill form on this page, and then I want to do like something else, and it just, everything is a tool call at the end of the day. But that was still like not enough. We were like, okay, how we can push the admin further? One thing that we considered was like, we just already include like the loader data to the context of Sidekick. But then we run into the problem of like, people put a lot of things on their loaders, and it's a bunch of JSON, and the model can get confused there. So we built this nice little like Sidekick hint API, which you can collocate with your loader, and basically as you navigate to the page, Sidekick keeps executing all those hints, and the developers can kind of like provide more awareness to the Sidekick that what's happening on the user session. So we have like, hey, this person tried to configure a domain, but the domain had an error. So when you ask like, hey, Sidekick, help me, which is something that people type a lot. It's like just a plain help me, and Sidekick has to figure out like what the hell is happening here. So this kind of like API allow us to move forward with this and build like a really like a system that understand. We still get cursed a lot. Sidekick users, Sidekick developers are its own like worst critics, I find, but it's getting to like a really nice place. Once Sidekick started working really well, we started moving away from like this little sidebar that we were in and trying to bring Sidekick into more places of the admin. So now, while previously you could, open this page here. Oh, sorry, scarred, dirty states. So now we got to a place where like a lot of the help links that previously were going to say like open help.shopify.com, do something else. If you click those things, we built this little like a launch API that allows you to kind of like start talking with Sidekick right away. And it says like products in Shopify, that's the merchandise, whatever. Like it does like a help call, it finds some things there. And this API is super neat because we also allow the developer that owns that page to add any additional context to it, and the model adheres to that context. So it's a great way to tell more about your product or build like some like, previously you had to do like a learn more and build like a documentation kind of thing. And now we can just have the person continue to learn about their feature while they're on the same page, while they're talking with Sidekick. This is my backup demo. The other thing that we ended up going was generating content. Like we're trying to move Sidekick away from this like sidebar and see where it can be used. And one thing that came to mind is like, okay, we can use Sidekick since it's going well. It's like outputting natural language, but maybe it could also output like some structured content. We can leverage that since it's this agentic loop. So we can start using Sidekick to like generate queries. You all saw the analytics tool that we showed in the past, and you can say like, show me sales for the last 30 days. And this is something that was built completely by the analytics team, just using a few APIs that we provided. So Sidekick is really moving to becoming like this platform on the admin. Is it gonna work? Yay. So you see it build like this little like analytics query. Sadly, this is my test shop. I don't have any sales. My Corgi cargo pants are not a hit, but we're trying. But even more like building this flow where you can kind of like refine the query and say like group by product title. And what I find really cool about this is that it's painting a future where Sidekicks know not only the chatbot, like Kent alluded to, but AI is kind of like part of like every feature that people are building. So yeah, it did here, group by product title, and update it. And this feels really natural. So one thing to do, and we could not do this before like figuring all those things out before. So, yeah. And the API for this is really like a call that's do like Sidekick generate. We have teams using this for product descriptions. It returns async iterable that you can just like go through the contents and do pretty much whatever you want with it. And you can, again, pass additional context, configure Sidekick from those calls. So it's really unlocking a lot of like new use cases for Sidekick. Yeah. And then now we have admin intents, which Miko showed. And for me, admin intents, the part that it makes like so cool is that let's say you're trying to do something like create a collection for my summer sale with a 20% discount to it. Previously, you have to kind of like open the collection page, hope that the user saved it, figure out somehow to track into like the save button that on the top. Once that happens, you would have to tell the model somehow that like the user did the thing, so the model could kick off the new loop. But now that we have this, everything's kind of like an intent, everything's a tool call. An intent returns like the ID of the product that was created, to return some payloads, so Sidekick can start thinking about, okay, I'm first gonna create a list of intents. I wanna create a product first, and then I wanna create a discount. Everything's a tool call, so it knows like the two results of the created product can go as an argument for the created discount, and just like starts like really understanding all of that, which I find like really cool. Can't demo this yet, but it's coming soon. And another cool thing that we ended up doing with Sidekick, and this was like when Kent was doing like so like talk with Sidekick, like Sidekick works with voice. But working with voice brought like a complete paradigm shift on how we build Sidekick. Whereas before it's like a server, voice is this persistent connection that you have. All the tool calls are happening between a proxy. It can call like some server tools, it can call some clients tools, and brought all those constraints to us. And we're gonna try to see how it works live.
Hey there, fellow entrepreneur. How can I help you make
Navigate me to products list.
Let me take you.
Okay. Kind of wonky, but I think you got the picture. So we did the navigation for us. And for me, what I want to really show with like voice is like, since there's no like button to be clicking, the person's most likely on a mobile page. We just got Sidekick to be much more proactive. Whereas in the past, we show like a little card for you. With voice is really like navigating and like changing the state of the admin. And this brings like one big like drawing the sand line that we had for Sidekick is AIs are getting better. AI, like they're constantly evolving. Our merchants are our most important thing. So while we trust AIs a lot to generate content, we built most of our patterns around this little like dirty states where the user will have to do like the final interaction. The user has to click save, the user has to approve what the model is doing. We one day get like background agents that are doing like all those things and managing the shop and doing like Toby vision of putting everything on sale. Yes, I'm confident, but it's not that day right now. And something that also started happening, it's like, okay, Sidekick's working well, but it started to feel like really constrained on this little piece of the sidebar. So we made Sidekick full screen, and Sidekick became like this integral part that like sometimes people are just using the Sidekick full screen mode to get reports, to test things out, and it ties really well with intents because now if you want to do a form fill, you no longer have to kind of like squeeze Sidekick to the sides, You can just open an intent, do the thing, Sidekick knows that everything is happening. So, because if I click here in preview, it will do to kind of like create the jarring experience, and that's something that we'll be able to avoid pretty soon. But then once you started doing like this big screen of Sidekick, we're like, okay, Sidekick's looking more and more like a canvas than like a single chatbot or something like that. And where can it go from there? So we started thinking about like how we're going to be using Sidekick to generate an UI. This is not only like the MCP-UI, which I'm very bullish on. I think it's a great paradigm, especially for like app developers that build on top of the Shopify platform to integrate with the admin, but also how we get Sidekick to generate like rich content, to build like a richer experience with the user. And our first attempt was like, okay, I just want to do like a for loop, call create elements, and call it a day. And this is kind of like what we came up with. It kind of worked. It wasn't perfect. You're like, okay, the models are really good at like writing code blocks. Like they have all this exposure to like writing code blocks. Shopify has a great MCP dev tool that shows all the Polaris components that you can use inside the admin. So like, let's try that. Let's see how it feels, and kind of like get like an S stack. This is built on the remote dawn technique. So the way that this works, this never saw the light of day, by the way, I'm going to explain why, but the way that this works is that we parse all this markup, we send to a web worker, the web worker compiles this, renders it, and then renders on a good old iframe on the client. The reason that this didn't work for us currently is mostly the models can be a bit too slow, and this markup can be a bit verbose. You're getting the model to generate like full pages of contents. And that's not always like, that takes time and creates like experience that the user is just like waiting there. 6 months from now, a year from now, we'll see where the models are in like speed, but I think we can have other ideas there. But something that I would encourage you all if you want to try it, like creating like some specialized components for this. You can do your own data fetching inside those components, you can do all those things. So if you're building like an application that you want to render like its own rich UI, this is something that I think it's going to work well in the future. And like, what's next? What do I see where we're going here? We have MCP-UI, we have WebMCP, which is a new standard that people are building to treat really the browser as this client that people are going to use. In-browser models are bound to happen. Chrome has its own API that they're training, that they're using. So you as a developer will be able to use the model to kind of like, instead of what we're doing to navigate all the routes, you might get a browser model to find the best route on your app or something like that. But as developers, what I see for us is like our focus should still be in providing like the best context possible, so that as models continue to improve, you're going to be in the best situation to leverage them. That's it. Thank you.